So if Season 1 was a good yet unspectacular beginning to Taskmaster, and Season 2 was pretty close to a perfect season of television, then Season 3 represents the moment it all came crashing down. And yeah, I'm in black and white right now because I love drama, damn it. So I have watched Season 3 the least of any Taskmaster season, and boy, oh boy, was this not an enjoyable rewatch. By itself, it's subpar and skippable to all but completists, but when watched directly after Season 2, it's pretty disastrous. It seems like it was the situation where the producers knew they had a hit on their hands, but then took all the wrong lessons from the previous seasons. Some of their choices were as baffling as if someone were to switch this video to color in the middle of a sentence. So, the offbeat casting choices of the last season were double and tripled down on, to the show's detriment. So many of the best tasks from the first 2 seasons were simply rehashed here, with slight variation, and all with much less impact. For example, Season 2 had a task where the players had to build a bridge over a miniature river, and there were secret messages in the room that pointed to hidden building supplies under the table. The audience loved it. So in one of the tasks this season, there's another secret message. But this one is an entire sentence written in Morse code through balloons, awkwardly hanging from a clothesline on a windy day. As if any of the contestants could have ever figured that out. What the hell? Like, how did that conversation even start in the writer's room? The beauty of the building supplies was that they're hidden in plain sight. The balloon code was just hidden so that the producers, Alex, could feel smart. It's also the season where the cast screwed up my beloved Buy a Taskmaster a Gift with 20 pounds recurring task so badly that it was discontinued, which is a sin I will never forgive them for. Look, I love Taskmaster, you love Taskmaster, we're all fans, so this gives me no pleasure to rip it to shreds for the next 15 minutes, but here we are. And now it's time to talk about Paul. Producers clearly looked at Joe Wilkinson and found some interest. Blech. Can you go back, please? I'm sorry. Rai.
No, I'm going to get your script up, too, just so I can see what...
But why? Yeah. You don't trust me? Yes, 0 points. You know, even though I like some contestants more than others, it's rare that I will actively dislike someone. Paul. Producers clearly looked at beloved buffoon Joe Wilkinson and wanted to find some interesting variation on him, which is why they were open to Paul putting on his character for the entire season instead of just being himself. Now, to say that this casting was a nightmare does a disservice to the good work of Freddy Krueger. I think I landed that. Well, we're going to go with it. No one knows whether to take him seriously or whether he's going to drop that guise at any point in the season. Greg seems baffled at how to address him. The other contestants, who were just being themselves, all but break the fourth wall, stare at the camera and say, "Can you believe this shit?" And the season never recovers from that. And we, as viewers, can never get enough distance from Paul to settle in with the other contestants because his idiotic shenanigans impact every single task. Now, Alex has gone on record to say he loved what Paul did, which is a generous statement and clearly a lie, since he never allowed a player to have a different character than their real selves in the subsequent seasons. Now, Paul's other defenders point out the amazing feat that he stayed in character in every episode without breaking once. What an accomplishment. I wish he had. In the first episode, Sarah Pascoe says something that I think sums up his Taskmaster legacy perfectly.
I'm starting to think we shouldn't be laughing at Paul.
Girl, I couldn't even if I wanted to. It's a testament to how much I dislike Paul that the guy who is only remembered for being caught cheating twice, and badly, ranked higher than him. Now, I'm sure Dave is a nice guy, and he had a couple moments that made me chuckle throughout the season, but the best way I would describe him is forgettable. Rob's unhinged hosting of you want to go back?
Yeah.
Thank you. How am I doing?
Great.
I'm trying to still sound energetic, but angry. So Rob's unhinged hosing of Alex while in drag stands as the most memorable moment of the season, and at his best, he can be a brilliant wild card. And at a certain point, Rob said that he taped most of these tasks a week after becoming a father, when he was so mentally exhausted that he could barely think straight. and that works both for him and against him, depending on the task. He can be very funny when he goes into panic mode, which is often, but he can also go way, way, way too far over the top, to the point where you're just staring at the string, blinking, and wondering why the audience is laughing. Now, I do have to give him credit. Last season, John Richardson voluntarily gave a horrendous, racist impression for literally no reason in a group task. This season, Rob was essentially told to do racist impressions as one of his tasks, and he miraculously managed, I think, to avoid doing anything cringeworthy. So good for him on that. His high points include putting a pea in that wheelbarrow, his life-size domino rally, and throwing his pants out the window of a moving car. But I'm gonna be really honest here. I like him one heck of a lot more in Champion of Champions. His approach to the task seems more refined, and his specific brand of humor lands better there. I can't be alone, can I? Let me know in the comments below. Al has the best running joke of the entire season, throwing money at anyone and everyone in order to get a task accomplished. He also has the second best running joke of the season, which is his giant gong. Gong! I said, gong. The money gag figures into one of the high points, where Sarah unsuccessfully tries to bribe Alex to help her move a bucket of water. The show then cuts to Al, offering Alex much more money, which Alex accepts. Watching Al hold out the money like a bone for a dog while Alex carries the water for him made me lol real hard, my friends. And he's perhaps the only member of the ensemble to really understand how to play Taskmaster in a classic sense, if that makes sense. Even though he was firmly planted in the middle of the pack points-wise all season, his work was usually much more memorable than the others. Who will forget his icy snowman screaming in pain from the bottom of the freezer?
What I saw was a monstrous, an awful freak. I see that. I see a creature in pain.
Or him throwing a red carpet into a taxi. Or his decapitated head bouncing around like a soccer ball. I do love that one. The biggest compliment I can give Al, and my number one choice, is that I wish they were on a better season. So, it's correct. No one from the season is getting the full 5 points. None of the players come close to Ramesh or Catherine or Joe or Richard, or I could keep going. But that said, I still like Sarah a lot. She's a great variation on the straight man player that we often see on the show, approaching things logically, flailing because she can't wrap her head around the anarchy of the show, but then being a good sport about it in the live sections. So, speaking of the live sections, the reason Sarah is my most admired player of the season is not because of her work in the task. It's because she is one of the best ever Greek chorusi. Anyway, her commentary on the successes and more often failures of the rest of the ensemble are often funnier than what we see happening in the recorded tasks. Right there in the first prize task, she sits there like a good sport while the others offer up their lame, flamboyant clocks, which are anything but. And then the moment Greg turns to her, she says that she fulfilled the brief by bringing in an actual clock. And I was immediately in stitches. Now, I already mentioned the moment where Al bribes Alex, but her in-studio reaction is a masterclass at wringing every possible moment of humor from a situation. The series was only 5 episodes, and I feel like if it were longer, Sarah would have had more time to get on the proper wavelength and could have become a great contestant. I believe that. But to be clear, I do not wish the season was longer. No. She's the kind of player who doesn't excite me, but always makes me smile. And you know what? That ain't nothing, my friends. Now calm down. I know this task had the aforementioned iconic moment of Robin drag with his hose. And I'll happily admit that the contestants handled what they were given as well as possible. But I did want to point out that this is the first time this type of task made an appearance, and that they almost never work out well. How can you be surprised when you're already expecting a surprise? Huh? The answer is you can't. It fundamentally, logically doesn't work. And I wish they'd stop trying to make fetch and that happen. So the first 2 seasons offered up the perfect first task that quickly defined the ensemble's personas, while also being a harbinger of the type of gameplay we will see throughout the season. And maybe the second part is true, that it's represented by all that goose shit that's on the track, but it's a meh task. The production quality at the track is weirdly cheap, and watching Rob and Sarah getting covered in all that shit, not fun to watch. Sorry.
I feel I might be sick.
It's so pooey, Alex. I mean, really.
I barely remember what any of the others did, aside from Paul being terrible. And honestly, a different task from the first episode would have been better. And I'll get to that one in a few minutes. So, if an unexpected special guest star gives one team a giant unfair advantage in an already mediocre task, then why even air it? Rob and Sarah struggled and became frustrated with the game, not in a funny way. And then the men's team just lucked into what was, frankly, a much more boring solution. Overall, just... So earlier, I said that Dave was caught cheating on 2 tasks, but he cheated in more, including this one. He revealed on the Taskmaster podcast, yes, I do listen, that he hopped in this makeshift sauna out of sight and started spitting in the egg cup. He lost that episode by 1 point, and if he would have won, I would have just started cursing so much colorful language that I would be banned from YouTube. This was a variation on the Collect the Most Tears challenge from season 1 that didn't quite make my top 3, but did come close. There was 0 reason to do another variation on it, especially one as gross as this.
Hey, come on, man.
Two of the best tasks this season involved the ensemble creating something from scratch. And that seemed to be a major strength of this cast. Major strength, you know. It's sometimes exploited in the UK version, but has become a much bigger player in the New Zealand version, and I'm not complaining about that. So the slowed down, speed up camera trick, which admittedly is just another variation, oh there's that word again, on the reverse video trick from season 1, it nearly made this list, but ultimately I like the flag meals more. Why? Because watching Alex eating the meals was fun. And watching the players watch Alex eat the meals was even more fun. And the flags, on the whole, were all quite good. Though Sarah's Canadian flag was robbed first place, at least in my mind. It's a sweet old guy who looks like Alex's father, or Alex after some time travel, which I wouldn't put past him, smiling and nodded while the contestants have meltdowns. What could be better? Paul's frustration at not being able to nail down the proper word is one of the only times he's genuinely funny on this show. Probably because it's the real Paul who's super frustrated.
Are you a doctor? He's a doctor. What sort of doctor, Paul? For f***'s sake, you bastard.
I mean, I don't know what type of doctors there are.
But the standout is Al with his weird voodoo magic questions. It was the perfect climax to an already funny task. So this task was also in the first episode and should have been the season opener, at least for my money. It's such a cute, straightforward idea, and each of the ensemble executed it in a different, interesting way. All the snowmen, or women, were memorable. Even Paul's sad blue bunny, that he called a bear hardy har har. The time-lapse of Sarah's melting. Al's tortured creation, all those potatoes and marshmallows. For just a few moments, you believe that season 3 could be great. God, I wish I could go back there again. So even though Sarah missed out, it was clear that this was the first season where producers began fidgeting with things in order to make every player win an episode, whether they deserved it or not. Now, that producer manipulation is my least favorite thing about the show, so of course it started here. And it's also fitting because, if I'm being really honest, there are no winners here. The series would thankfully bounce back in a major way because, spoiler alert, season 4 and 5 are spectacular. And I'll always be grateful for this season because it's the first time Greg called Alex Little Alex Horne. But the rest of it, 1 point. But what do you think? Are you a Paul fan? Say no. Have you ever rolled around in goose shit for fun? Again, please say no. And do you want to build a snowman?